Okay, this is the fourth scenario that we're going to go through, and this is around getting open accounts receivable into QuickBooks, and it would be very similar with open accounts payable. So what we're looking at is actually an export from an outside system. This system is Great Plains, but every system that you get data from can look a little bit different. And even within the same systems, if they're different years, right, it can look a little different. But I wanted to take you through this example to show you the thought process on how I got to having this, right, which is, you can see it's kind of messy. And this is an open AR report, how I got from this into a columnized format so that we could copy and paste the open balances into QuickBooks. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to look at the data that check out the data that we have. So I can see here up top it looks like it's not really data, it's kind of more header information. All right, so I know I can kind of ignore this stuff. It does have this column here, or I'm sorry, this row here that has some, words in it, and then I go all the way to the right and there's nothing else in this row. So, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that row. Try to get rid of things like slowly. You have to be very careful when you get rid of them, but slowly get rid of them. Okay, and then I kind of get down here and I can tell, all right, this is a customer, and it looks like a customer number, and here's the name, and I have a date. Oh, and it looks like maybe a transaction, right? Because it says it's a payment. And then I can kind of scroll over here. Usually I'd make it a lot smaller, but of course I want you all to be able to see as well. So then I can kind of scroll over here to the side and see, oh, it's showing me there's a payment, and then there's an amount here, but then there's only $41 that's current. Right, so probably this was the original amount, but this is the still open balance that we're left with. Okay, and then again, continue down, right, there's spaces in between. It's good to note. There's another payment. This one's for the entire amount. And then down here we have some totals. And then I kind of want to see, like, the total for the customer is $466.05. Obviously these two don't add up, so if I highlight these two, right, it's going to sum it for me down below here. So those add up to $862.87, but if these add up $466.05, okay, so probably I was correct, right? Like, this is the open balance, this is the original amount, because this is showing my total balance. And again, every system that you pull this from is going to be slightly different, so you do have to read into it a little bit. And sometimes you may need to confirm with a customer as well. Okay. Then we're going to go, keep scrolling down here. I'm going to go to the next one. Oh, here's another customer and the name, right? So again, some consistency I'm starting to see here. They do have document numbers. This time it's an IVC number, which probably means invoice, and the amount, and scroll over. Okay, the full amount is $835. $745 is open balance. If I highlight, it'll total for me $1580. There's the total $1580. Okay, so I'm probably on a pretty good track here. Okay, so what is the thing that I forgot to do? Can anybody think about it? Can anybody think about it? I forgot to make a copy. So I want to move or copy, right? Create a copy of this, so that I have my import copy and I keep my original. I know I got rid of that one line, but I can go ahead and keep moving forward with this. All right, so I found some consistencies in here and I kind of understand what I'm looking at, but it's in a really messy format, right? I can't take this data and just import it into QuickBooks. QuickBooks likes all the scenarios that we looked at. It likes columnized data, right? Where it's a header, and then it says the details below, header, details below, header, details below. So we want to try to get it to that format. So now when I think about pasting into Excel, right, or pasting into QuickBooks for the accounts receivable, what are the fields that I need? I need to know the reference number. And it looks like this column has reference numbers in it, right? It has some pretty long reference numbers in it. But I'm just going to go ahead in here and I'm going to call this column reference number, right? Because I think that I'm correct there, and I'll bold this out so it makes a little bit more, it stands out a little more. So that one I have as reference number. What's the other thing that we need? We need the customer name. Okay, so I do have a customer number here and a customer name, but when we're talking about having it in columns, right, I need it in the same row as the details. All right, so I'm going to have to figure that part out. But then continuing on, what's another thing I need? I need date, and it looks like we have a date field here. Okay, so I can put date, and this doesn't really give me much information, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete the header there because I'm not sure what it is yet. All right, then we have the total amount. Now when we're importing opening balances, I don't care about the original total amount, right? I just care about the open balance. So I'm not going to use this column either, so let me go ahead and get rid of that. Then I come over here and I have discount, write-off, current, right? So all of these things I see sometimes they're in the same, sometimes they're in the same column, sometimes as down here they're in different columns. So I know I'm going to have to deal with the amounts down there. The other thing that would probably be important is the terms, or are the terms. In this example, everything is due upon receipt, so I'm not going to focus on the terms, but that would also be something that is really important, right? Because you want to know the original date of the transaction. The terms will tell you when the transaction is due, and then that way it'll calculate correctly your AR aging. Okay, but these are all upon receipt, so I don't have to worry about it. All right, and then of course, like I said, the amount I'm going to have to figure out, but the amounts are here on the row. So far everything's here on the row that I need except for the customer name. So now my first step is going to be, can I get that customer name from up here to down here? Now of course you can insert a line and copy and paste, but I mean we have in this one alone 2,500 lines. That'd be a lot of copying and pasting and room for error. So instead I want to try to use Excel to figure out a formula here. So here's what we do. I'm going to go ahead and insert a column, okay? And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for some consistencies. So every time I see customer, I have the customer number. Every time I see name, I have the name. Then down below here I see customer again, and there's my customer name. Keep going down, customer, there's my customer name. So if I see this customer, right, customer colon, in the box on the furthest left, then I can assume that 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes over, I can see the customer name and the name that I need to return in order for the name to be right put on these lines here. So here's what we do. I'm going to put an if-then statement in here. So I'm going to say equals if. So if box to the left and up one cell, right? If A10, right? I'm in B11, but if A10 equals, and then I'm going to use A10 again. Okay, so if A10 equals A10, but this time I'm going to hit the F4 key. And what that does is it puts this $sign before the A and $sign before the 10. When you're dealing with formulas in Excel, the $sign before the A and $sign before the 10 says make it stagnant. Don't move it, right? So generally when you copy down, right? If I copy this down, it's going to go A10, A11, A12, A13. But when you put the $signs in there, it says don't add to it when I copy down. Leave it at A10. Well, it says leave it at A, first of all, with the $sign, and leave it at 10. Now you can just leave a $sign before A, and it would say leave it in A, and copy down 10, 11, 12. But since I have the $sign before the 10 as well, then it's going to leave it and say, so the whole column when I copy this down is going to focus on if A10, A11, A12 equals A10. Okay. All right, so I'm going to say if A10, so if this equals customer colon, then I want to return the name of the customer. Okay. If not, then I want to return the cell right above, so B10. Okay. So in this case, since customer colon equaled customer, right, it returned Fourlane Racing. Now if I keep going down in the next one, here it's saying if A11 equals A10, then return this cell, right, E11. But since it doesn't, since this box doesn't have customer colon in it, then it's just going to return what's above it, right, B11. So it's going to return Fourlane Racing again. And I keep copying it down, copying it down, copying it down. Still working for me, right? Now I have Fourlane Racing on the same line as my transaction here that I need to import. Okay, that's nice and fine and dandy, but let's wait till I get to another customer. Okay, so now here I get to another customer, right? And it still says Fourlane Racing, but you know what? I don't care at this point, right? Because I don't want this line really. This line I don't care about. I care about this line. So at this next one, the one right below customer, here, it's saying, does the cell to the left and up, right, equal customer colon? If so, return E20. If not, return B20. So it does, this customer colon equals customer colon up there, right? It's the same information in that cell. So it returns for me E20 and gives me the name of the new customer that we're looking for. So then if I copy that down, right, now I ended up with the customer name on the same line as the transactions. Right? So again, looking for those consistencies, searching out those consistencies, that's what we want to do here. Okay, so I'm just going to take this and copy it all the way down. Okay, and so the way that I did that, right, I copied the cell, click on this, the cell below it, hit shift, hit shift to highlight all of those cells, and then Control V for paste. So I just want to spot check a couple, right? You go and stick it in the middle, go to the middle a little bit. So I have customer here, Tanner Enterprises, and notice, okay, Tanner Enterprises, it picks it up. All right, let's spot check a couple others. Here's one, a big one. So I'm starting here. Here's the customer, starts with Tanya. And then coming down here, starts with Tanya. And then all of these transactions have Tanya now on the same line. So perfect, it worked well. So now I can title. Well, first of all, I want to copy and paste special, right? Copy, paste special, my values. Okay, because that gets rid of the formulas that we had in there. But then it leaves for us the customers on each line, and I'm going to call this customer name. Okay, so now I have picked out the reference number, customer name, the date. Okay, we're not going to deal with the terms, and now I need the amount, right? Because I already know the item we're going to use is open. I know the quantity we're going to use is 1. Now I just need to figure out the amount. Now at this stage, before I go into the amount, since now I seem to have everything on one line, right, I'm going to do some more spot checking, because again, if the amounts are all on one line, the date's there, the customer name's there, the invoice number, the reference number's there, then perhaps I can do some sorting, right, and get rid of some of these other rows that I don't need. So again, I'm just going to scroll down and looking at some amounts here and make sure that there aren't any amounts with blanks. So I can see here already there are some amounts with blanks. So you have to be aware, right? You have to be aware of any kind of variances, any outliers. So in this case, it's saying, okay, well, if it's blank or if it has a reference number in it, then I can keep those lines, right? If it's not blank, then I can probably get rid of it. Like I can get rid of the balance, because I don't care about that. I can get rid of the totals, the customer now, because I don't need that anymore. Terms, this field. So there's a lot of fields I can get rid of, right? That are pretty consistent that I see in here that I know I don't need that information. So the way that we get rid of them, and again, sometimes along the way, right, we talked about it's always good to write down your steps so that if you ever stray off, like exactly what you did. So you want to, make sure to document your steps. So you have to go, step 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sometimes you have to go back to step 6. So in order to recreate step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you want to have it documented so that it's easy to redo those steps. You don't have to think about like, what did I do? What did I do? So you want to make sure and do that. But in here, what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and sort these so that we can end up with or get rid of some of this extra junk. So I'm going to highlight the entire worksheet here, and I'm going to do a sort. And actually, I'm not going to do a sort. I'm going to filter. Okay. So the difference between sort, right? Sort's just going to put it in order, and I don't really want it in order necessarily because it's going to put it in alphabetical order for me. And filter, what it does is it allows us to filter out or in certain items. So in this case, what I want to filter is I want to leave all of the things that I want to get rid of, right? So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck this so that I can just pick out the ones I want to get rid of. So I want to get rid of the account type rows, the balance rows, the class rows, right? All these rows that don't seem to have any data in them, right? Like credit, debit, IVC, so any of the actual transactions. And I'm going to scroll down here and see if there's any, there's some more down here, ranges, receivables, get rid of this stuff. Now again, before you get rid of it, you also want to make sure that there's nothing in those rows that you want to keep for any reason. But so far, all we've seen is that our transactions could have been in the blanks, but most of the time the transactions start with, a reference number, which is here. So now I'm left with all of these, okay? And of course the totals, you see amounts in there, but we don't care about the totals right now. The other thing that you can do that's pretty good is that you can create, import 1, import 2, keep creating additional sheets or copying additional sheets so that, again, you get through step 4, copy the sheet so at step 4, like you finish step 4 and this is what you're left with. And then you copy the sheet to start step 5. So if you need to go back to step 4 again, it's really easy. You just can recopy that sheet. So again, just little tips in there. So all of these, now that I've filtered out all the stuff I want to keep, I'm going to delete these things that I don't want to keep. So I'm going to select the top row, come all the way down to the bottom, hit Shift, and then select the bottom row, and then right click and delete. Okay. And now when I come back in here, I'm going to turn the filters off, and all I'm left with now are some blank spaces that I definitely, don't know if I need or not. Like this one, probably not, right? Because there's nothing in it except for just this customer name. But it allows me to narrow down that data, get rid of a lot of the stuff so that I can focus, right, on the information that's important to me. Okay. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do, I'm going to look for some consistencies again. So it looks like, so these top 2 rows here, I can get rid of also because there's nothing in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete those. Now it looks like, again, right, it says here's my payment, here's my payment, here's my payment, or invoice, invoice, invoice. But then down here I have some amounts in this field, right? And I don't know what this field is, but it looks like I could probably just copy this field and stick it over here and then end up getting rid of that field. So I want to sort by this field to see if I can get all of the information that's in, all of the information that's left over, right? So anything that is a reference number that is not in column A, I want to be able to copy it across to column A. So again, I'm going to highlight the entire document and I'm going to sort and I'm going to say this does have headers, right? You always want to make sure if you stick a header line in there, you want to make sure it says that. But I'm going to sort by column C. Okay. So I see here some credit numbers, and all of these do have some kind of amount associated with them. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these over to column A. And then if I scroll down, oh, I have some payments down here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy these over to column A. Okay. And let's go down here. So these all have stuff in them. Keep scrolling down. And see if there's if there are any more gaps. So here's starting a gap where we don't have any, plus we don't have any amounts over here, right? So these are just blank lines that I can end up getting rid of. Scroll all the way down, and it looks like that's it, right? So I can get rid of all these lines because they're blank. So again, all I'm doing is narrowing down, trying to figure out ways I can find consistencies, right? To get rid of stuff I don't need to be looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of those. All right. And now I'm left with just a whole bunch of transactions. All the way down. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say save. Now that I have all the reference numbers in this column, I can actually get rid of this column here, right? Because I don't need it anymore. I copied it across. There's no other information in here that's really important. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. So now we have reference number, customer name, date. Now let's see what we can do about these amounts. Okay. Now this amount, right, the column that we saw, if I go back and I look at, 437, 425, if I go back and look in here, because it's always good to reference back, I can see that was the amount, right, the original amount. That's the field that I think was the original amount. So I'm going to title this original amount, since I really don't know what that was. Now after the original amount came the discount, write-off, current, 31, 61, 91, and over, etc. So I'm actually going to copy this from my original and paste this in as headers in here, right, to see if it all matches up, right? Okay. Because I don't know really, right? Do I have anything in that discount column? I do. But then if it's in the discount column, it's not in the original amount column, right? So I need to kind of try to figure out how I can get to the amounts, right? The totals. What is the system figuring out for this total here? So again, I'm going to go back in and sort it back to its original order, right? So where the customer name is up top here. And because it starts with Fourlane up top here, I'm going to go on down to Fourlane and take a look. Right? EF, Fourlane. Okay. So Fourlane here has, right, we figured out the amount total when I look at it here was 466.05, and so this adds up to 466.05 again. One of the things also you may want to do with this is you may want to freeze your panes. So under view, you can say freeze panes and freeze the top row, so that way you can, when you scroll down, right, it still leaves you that top row so you know what you're looking at here. So I want to go into one that has some information in the discount column, because I want to see what happens, right? What's the total, because there's no original amount here. So I want to go in and look at B&H Consulting's total, right, as an example, and see if it includes the discount. So if I go to B&H, and the easiest way is just to do a find, right? So I'm going to copy B&H and then come over here and find it, because obviously they're not in alphabetical order on this sheet. Okay, so here's B&H. So the total when I'm looking at this sheet is it's $552.73. That's the total. And then when I highlight here to try to add up, it does include this discount column, right? Well, I guess I should add up all the way to 91. So essentially what I'm figuring out here is that what the total that we're adding up here, it includes discount to 91 and over, all of those, right? So let me try and do a different one. So let's pick on celebration tours and travel. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy and find. So when I find celebration tours and travel now, I want to do the same thing. Let's see if the total open balance, right? So I'm highlighting here to the total open balance. The total open balance includes that discount column, right? Because 3051 now totals 3051 here. Okay. So that tells me, again, I need to add up all of these columns in order to get my totals. That's great. So I'm going to come in over here and make one called total and go back on up to the top, and I'm going to do a sum of discount through 91 days. So it gets me $84 there. And I'm just going to copy that all the way down. Make sure it copies all the way down to the bottom. Okay. So now that that's copied down, now instead of having them into, set up in 5, 6 columns here, I have all the totals or the open balances in one column, or so I think. So then I'm going to come in here and just highlight this row so that it gives me the total on the bottom. So the sum of all of these together is $240,001.91. So then again, I want to come into my original sheet and look at the total, right? Because at the bottom usually they have totals. And this says $238,877.41. So I'm close, but I'm not off. It's not exact. So somewhere in here, there's another issue. There's another problem. And so what we want to do is kind of search out for those problems. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to do too is copy and paste special, right? Get rid of the, so copy cells and then paste special values to get rid of that formula. All right, and that gets rid of a lot of those, little error marks in there, in that column as well, those little green arrows that were there. Okay. So now another thing that I would try is that I would try to, see, let's highlight the original amount and see if that comes close. So this, obviously we know that it doesn't because we highlight. So this comes out to 200,000. And again, what are we looking at here? We're looking for 238,000. So that's not correct either. So the next best thing that we can do is do a comparison, right? I mean, you can start to go line by line and, see what, so this is 84, this is 84, this is 84, right? This is nothing. This is 1585.25, 1585.25. So we can start to go line by line, but again, we're talking about, we have 1,000 lines here. It could take a while. So generally, again, I try to do some checking, right? Let's do some spot checking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do another if then. Let me go ahead and save. I'm going to do another if then to see if this total equals the original amount, okay? And that if anywhere in there, there's a variance. Because the original amount is low, the total amount that we have here is high, so somewhere in between is the actual total that we're looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and say equals if, okay? So if this number here, so our total that we came up with, equals this number here, then I'm just going to return this number here, right? Just going to return the $84 again. If not, then I want to sum this amounts again, right? I want to get the sum of discount through 91. So I'm going to say, if not, sum A, B, C, D, E, E2 through, the colon means through, J2 again. And I did something wrong there, but it fixed it. Oh, I forgot to put the second parentheses. Okay, so then I get 84 there. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this down, and I'm going to compare the two, because in theory, right, I'm saying if this equals that, then return this. If not, sum it again for me. So once I have those two, right, set up here, and there's some comparison, how do we do any kind of comparisons, right? When we're in Excel, we do an if then again. So equals if K2 equals L2, or actually, yeah, if K2 equals L2, well, they should all add up there. But what I'm looking for is variances there. So I'm going to say equals if L2 is 0, right? Because again, the total number is higher. So I'm going to say if L2 equals 0, then return an X. If not, then just return a blank. So I'm basically looking for, we expect there to be some amount in here. If there's no amounts in the total column, or now that we've done a comparison between total and original, I want it to stand out for me. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that down and just scroll down and see what we end up with. And then we do have some X's down here. So here's my first X. And I don't want to go too far over. But basically what's happened here, right? So when I'm totaling the 91 through the discount, there's no amounts in there. But there is an amount in the original amount column. All right? So what I have to do with this is I have to now go back and look and see on the original if the total, right, if the total amount that for Cypress Care includes this $490, even though it's not on our discount, write-off, current, whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and copy Cypress Care and go back to my AR and find. So there's Cypress Care there. And Cypress Care does have an extra line in here, so you want to make sure when you're trying to total up that you don't total up this extra line. So I'm going to go ahead and total up, right, my discount, and then I'm going to hit Control and continue to total up here. So if I add up just my discount through my 91 days and over, I get to 3160.29. And it's showing me that my total, right, my totals down here, are 2670.29. And so if I include this 490, now I get to my 2670.29. So now I know in my grand total at the bottom for my open AR, it includes this negative 490. Okay. So on this sheet here, again, what I want to do is I want to see how many X's we have, because if there's just a couple, I'm just going to copy it across, right? So I want to first copy and paste special and paste my values here, right? Because I need to be able to paste my values so I can sort. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the original sheet here and I'm going to sort by column M. So I get all my X's together and they're all going to be at the bottom. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, there's 5, 6, okay? So all I'm going to do, because there's only 6, right? It's not like I have to go discover something else big. I'm just going to copy these 6 and put them into my total column, because now I expect that those totals are in there. Now that I have my these totals moved over, I'm going to spot check again. Okay, so let's go ahead and add up this totals column. It adds up to 238,877.41. Come back here to my original That number's looking familiar. I get 238, 877, 41, and I do a little dance, right? Because I got the totals to add up and total out to my AR aging report. Okay. So again, you can see through trial and error kind of how we go through the different steps. So now that I have that done, I can now get rid of these two columns because I don't need those anymore. I'm going to go ahead and resort my data, and I'm going to sort it by customer name again. Okay. So now I have my reference number, my customer name, date. I don't care about the original amount, discount. All of these columns can actually go away because now I have my totals. Okay. Now before I paste my open AR into QuickBooks, I want to go into QuickBooks and make sure that there aren't any transactions in there open right now, right? So I want to come in here. I do have a couple open transactions that I created as samples. So I'm going to go ahead and delete those, right? We talked about that you're going to have to come back and delete these in the future. And it looks like I have two more. And one, well, let's do the total here so I can get both of them. Okay, so now I have no open AR in my system, right? So that's one thing you always want to do. The second thing that you want to look at, you need to be aware of, right, when you're converting is you have to be aware of the reference number field, right? The reference number field in QuickBooks. The way to test it, because this is a big reference number. Anytime you see anything large, you always want to consider, like, let's go look in QuickBooks, or maybe you know off the top of your head. So best way to test it is to come into QuickBooks and go into that field and type in, right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, no more. So I can have 11 characters, that's it. Now, when I'm looking at these reference numbers here, I see a whole bunch of zeros in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros on that one. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 zeros on that one. Let's see if there's any that look kind of smaller. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, still 7 zeros. Okay. Because what I'm seeing here, what I want to keep the IVC because that's important, and I need to keep these last because it seems like these last digits over here on the side are important, right? So sometimes, occasionally, what you can do is if you don't care about the IVC side of it, you can do, remember how we did equals left before? I can come in here and do equals right. And I'm going to say from the right, take the 11 characters from the right and put them in my column. So it's going to end up with 11 characters here, right? So that's one way to do it. In this case, though, like I said, I want to keep the IVC and the payment, or, you know, whatever it is, credit. We saw some credits in there. I want to keep that and just get rid of what's in the middle. So the easiest way that I found to do that is just to find and replace. So I highlight the column, I hit Control F for find. I click the replace tab, and I'm going to find 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros. And I'm going to replace it with nothing. So I'm just trying to get rid of 7 zeros in a row. And I hit replace all. Okay. Now it says it made 910 replacements. But of course I want to spot check it. So I see one here. This one has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. So I'm going to do it again. Find. Oops. Find. And replace. Instead of 7 zeros, I'm going to do 6 zeros and replace it with replace all. So now it cleaned it up even more. Scroll down. Make sure, whoops, that there aren't any that look like they're really long. This one's really long still, so it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 with just the numbers and. So I'm going to get rid of RR000 as an example. So find, replace RR000. Okay, so it found 6 of those. And usually by this point, I'm really, really getting anxious to get it all in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I'm still left with 12. So actually, I should have done replace RR0000, right? Because there were 4. Okay. And now that will leave me with 1, 2, where is it? Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Perfect. Now you don't want to just replace the zeros, right? Because it could, like here we have 5, 6, 5, 0. So I don't want to get rid of all zeros. You're trying to look for consistencies, right? When the zeros are a problem. Now, the other thing that I do with this is I'll also let QuickBooks tell me when there's a problem, right? So I don't have to go down and scroll and check all of these. I let QuickBooks tell me when I paste it in that there's an issue with this one item or this one line. Okay, but for the most part, I've got them pretty cleaned up. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save here again. So now we're going to go into QuickBooks and we're going to go to paste, right? So accountant, batch enter transactions, and we're going to batch enter invoices and credit memos. So the first thing that we're going to paste in is going to be the date field. So I'm going to come in here, copy the date column, go into QuickBooks, right click on the first cell, select paste, and notice it pre-fills in for me numbers, but of course we want to keep our numbers that we were using. So I select this one, scroll up to the top here, paste, copy my reference numbers, select the top row and paste. Okay. Then we come to our customer job, highlight that column, copy, right click, paste. The terms we had as due on receipt. So I'm just going to select it in the first line here, and then I'm going to go ahead and right click on that cell and copy down. Okay, the amount field, I'm just going to go ahead and copy that column. Occasionally you may want to check the format. Make sure that your format is a number, not a text or anything like that. So go ahead and copy that. And paste it in the amount field. Now notice it takes out some of the terms here because these guys are now credit memos, right? Okay. And I'm going to leave the description blank. I don't need sales rep. We don't have that. The item we know is we're going to use that open item. So I'm going to put it in the top line and then copy it down. The quantity we have as 1, so I'm going to put in the top line and copy it down. Okay. Now notice what it did there is it took and it made these amounts positive now. So I want to go back again, and I still have this copied, and I want to paste in the amount. Okay, so now it goes back to being correct there. Or you know what, I'm just going to leave the quantity field blank. Let's just go ahead and clear this column so we don't have any issues, because the quantity really doesn't matter. And let's just keep in the amount here. Okay, then I see over here I have sales tax code of none, tax item of Austin. All right, down below here it gives me some totals. So my total invoices that it's going to be setting up is 303, my total credit. So of course it's always helpful before you hit save. Well, first of all, it's helpful to do a backup, right? Always do a backup first, because otherwise you're going to have to go delete all of these. But let's go ahead and do the math. 303, 120.72 minus 64, 243.31. There's that 238, 877.41 that we love so much, and do a little dance every time we see it because it adds up. And then we're going to go ahead and save our transactions. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and pause this while it goes through. All right, so now at the end here, it says we entered 989 transactions, and really I didn't have to pause it. It took about 15 seconds, but there are 7 that need review, okay? So we want to go ahead and look at these 7. Remember what I told you? I want QuickBooks to allow me or to, tell me if the number's incorrect or anything like that. So the problem here is that the customer name, this one customer, doesn't exist. So I can just click on this customer. Let's see what it's saying. Text entered is invalid for this field. Let's go look at the Customer Center and see if Pat Armstrong is in there. It's at Pat Armstrong Inc. So I want to go ahead and copy the name, and I'm going to paste it in there and copy it down, and then try and save again. Okay, now it saved those. I don't know why it kicked back, but it was a minor change. So now, of course, the last step that I want to do is I want to go into my AR aging summary, take a peek, and of course the balance is off. So what I'm going to assume is that it had something to do with that Pat Armstrong. And again, live recordings here, you're going to get problems, so let's go ahead and troubleshoot together. So I'm going to look at Pat Armstrong here. I'm going to come back into my Excel spreadsheet. So let's go back over here, look for Armstrong. So find Armstrong. Okay, and on the sheet here, it shows that Pat Armstrong should have 1897.42. In QuickBooks, we're showing 205.396. So I'm not sure why, but my guess is that this is the only one that's off. This is the only one that had errors. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through and confirm each amount. So the first one, the payment should be $429.66. And it's not for some reason, so oh, I see what happened. Look at it, picked up tax on these. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close those. All these pop-ups. Okay, so let's take a look at the next one. Picked up tax, right? So I want to go ahead and make it non-taxable, save it. And make it non-taxable, save it. And again, I'm just doing these manually. If you had a whole bunch, we would go back right to our backup and try again because we wouldn't do that for all these. But it looks like it's just the tax here. And you always have to gauge that, right? What's going to be fastest? Is it going to be fastest for you to go through and revert to a backup, or is it going to be fastest for you to just edit a couple items? So now we have 1897.42, which is again what we were looking for here, 1897.42. Let's go back to our AR aging summary, down to the bottom. Now we're back on track to 38,877.41. So of course, I'm glad that that actually happened. There's always troubleshooting that has to happen when you're doing any conversion. It's good to be aware of it, good to pay attention to what's going on so you can go in and see, right, where things are potentially going wrong. But for the short amount of time that took, we have over 1,000 transactions entered into QuickBooks, and we can move on and go to the AP as an example now.